This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I sincerely hope that your day is a good one. I record this short introduction feeling a little bit glum. Last night, the England football team narrowly lost the final of the Euros after giving it their best shot. And to me, it highlighted the fine margins that do exist in sport. Spain, well, they've been the best team throughout the tournament and in the final. However, clearly, the England team, as well as having a lot of quality, they also demonstrated an awful lot of mental fortitude. They didn't play anywhere near their best, yet, they did continue to dig in, to grind out performances. They weren't pretty, certainly for many supporters, but in this cutthroat world of elite sport, they very nearly got the job done. For me, it highlights the importance of the mental game. Of course, I'm not biased though. Now, for more on the mental game, in a different sport this time, cricket that is, my friend Tom Jones, who's a junior cricket coach and the creator of Cricket Coach 365, where he has a fantastic podcast and a great community on Facebook. Well, Tom invited me to talk to some of his peers earlier in the cricket season. This episode, it's a little bit different, where Tom takes the lead and I have the role as the guest expert. We go on to discuss the mental game of cricket, discussing the emotional aspect of the sport, outcome talk, where together we go on to share some advice for cricket coaches, especially those involved in youth cricket, as well as cricketers too. Enjoy.
Hi everybody, it's Tom from Cricket Coach 365 and welcome to our latest online chat where this evening I'm delighted to be joined by David Charlton. David's a sports psychologist who supports individuals from juniors all the way through to elite athletes across all different sports, but we're obviously going to talk primarily about cricket this evening. So David, thanks for making the time and great to see you again. Looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, no, big thank you for the opportunity, Tom. And again, looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Well, I know we've kind of had a discussion offline about a number of different really interesting coaching questions. So if I kind of pose the first one to you, and let's just see how things develop from there. So the first question is, what do you notice most when players are playing at their best, or what do you notice when players are playing to the best of their ability?
Right. Okay. I suppose if we tweak that question and think about it from a coach's perspective, so I would say, what does a coach notice when the players are playing their very best for starters? And maybe a coach possibly would go down the route of thinking technically, how are they playing, potentially tactically as well. Whereas obviously my profession psychology, so I'm straight into psychologically what's happening here. So at their best, their energy levels, their focus and intensity, their freedom of expression, creativity, the fact that they're potentially going to be like playing shots or bowling with positive intent. As far as emotions go, their emotions are likely going to aid their performance. So if they feel uncomfortable, I suppose what I'm going to say is they're probably going to have a challenge mindset there. So it's not really going to impact their performance. So I don't know if they feel like or they're going to get bowled out or they're going to get whacked for a six or something or other, they'll reset themselves very quickly and then going through their routines and then look to execute. Anything else? So I suppose from a coach's perspective, how can a coach get in the head of a player? And for me, it's asking really good questions of the player to help them understand themselves and psychologically what's actually happening when they have a damn good performance. Thinking about the sensory experience of being energized, of having lots of intensity, of being creative, of having potential challenges with their emotions and being able to override it. And I'd definitely advocate that with regards to coaches.
Yeah, I think you're gonna. It's no surprise that you're going to find me agreeing with most of the things you say, but um, I think what you said right at the beginning is um, a very fascinating area in itself, because so many club coaches, level two, I'm talking about, as opposed to anything higher, they'll have all had the learning around tactical, technical, physical, and psychological, but there is far less emphasis on the psychological aspect of a player's development than there is on technique. So that's why I think this whole topic as a whole, and bringing you in to discuss it, is really important, and it's still probably applicable to those more highly qualified coaches at level 3 and level 4. And it's fair to say, and it's appropriate to mention that on those coach education pathways, psychology plays a more significant part. But we're talking here primarily about club coaches, and in a club coach environment, what do they notice when players are playing at their best? They're noticing, as a batter, have they scored runs? They're noticing, as a bowler, have they taken wickets? Primarily, are they, as a keeper, have they dismissed taking catches and stumpings? And that isn't the whole thing, is it? And so you're with you and your background and your expertise, your knowledge, your education, it's showing it's demonstrating there are other areas to explore, and through really good questioning, you'll start to understand more yourself as a coach. And I think, as somebody, I'm not a qualified psychologist, but I'm really interested in the subject. But I think it starts by having an interest in your player, when your players, and that curiosity, which is the coaching buzzword, that interest in your player doesn't necessarily have to be just in one particular aspect of their game or their identity. So I think it might kind of open up into all sorts of different areas, which some of these other questions that we've prepared, might be relevant. But yeah, asking those questions, which are giving the player the opportunity to kind of reflect on when they're at their best, I think is something that I think would be really good practice in coaching environments, in clubs in particular.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I suppose this will overlap into one of the other questions we're going to explore. But if you're a coach and you're being curious and asking players about some of those areas we've talked about, the intensity, the freedom of expression, the positive intentions, and all that, then in a way, what you're doing, you're flooding their nervous system, their body, the memories up in their mind there with positivity, which ultimately, I suppose, if you do that on a match day, then okay, there's not a direct correlation with feeling great and scoring runs, but it gives you an awful lot of a lot better chance than obviously being in a nervous, anxious, potentially negative frame of mind.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
for kids in particular, you're going back to even under playing your first game as an under nines, so really that real tender age of, you've come out of All Stars, or you've come out of that very early stage, that initial stage of play, and you're playing a game which is pairs cricket as an 8-year-old, and you're going out to bat, and most children will have their heads filled with anything but positivity, because they're worried about getting out. They're worried about, I suppose, failing in front of friends, teammates, and family members. So even at that tender age, filling their minds, flooding their minds, as you call it, with positivity, is going to help them massively. And you want, as a coach, the best outcome you want is for the kid to come off feeling great, regardless of what the actual outcome in terms of runs, whatever the result of the game is.
Yeah, yeah, I tend to agree. There's two things I'd sort of pick up on there. One is that I think the science tells us that about 85% of our thoughts up here are negative. That's just our natural bias. Obviously, some
Mm-hmm.
people will be worse than others. Um, Emotion, be it anxiety, nervousness, that's going to play a part in our thinking. And then the other one I would go to though is the outcome talk. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if the listeners, viewers, and future, if they were to to put a transcript on this conversation, the 5 or 6 points that I highlighted about playing at your best, not one of them was outcome talk at all. It was all process driven.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to ask a player every time I work with someone, always ask them a question about like playing a match would be in your next match, what is success to you? And you
Mm-hmm.
can guarantee the batter will turn around at scoring runs, the bowler will turn around taking wickets. Yeah, as you say, the wicket keeper will be about catches or dismissals, all outcome talk. And
Mm-hmm.
I really tried to get to, well, okay, great, fine. Like winning the match, obviously, is another one. Um, then it's like, well, let's break this down. How are you going to help your team win the game? How are you going to help your team by scoring 50 odd runs or a century? What are the key ingredients to make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And then that becomes then a process talk,
Yeah.
where it might be I need to stay present would be one thing. It might be I need to go through my batting routine consistently, no matter what the situation is. If I have a play and a miss, it might be that I respond positively. My body language is again is positive, chest out, shoulders back, head up, and then there's well, positive thinking comes into the equation. But I've I don't know, I, I'm on the fence when it comes down to positive thinking. If I'm honest, because as far as I'm concerned, we're all human. We think in the past where whether we beat ourselves up, we fast forward to the future and overwhelm ourselves. It's just how you bring yourself back's the important thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to those key ingredients, so there's like half a dozen points, and we could probably pick up on another two or three other things there quite easily. And if you then, I think what a great thing as a coach that you can do to help your players is appreciate what each individual's key ingredients are.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe don't want to overwhelm them with 6, 7 things. You might want to dial it back to two or three. Um,
And there, David, got you
but
back.
did you lose me there with a connection?
Just for about 5 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back again. So you
Appreciate a
yeah,
player's key ingredients.
yeah, so appreciating the key ingredients of a player, but being very careful not to overwhelm them with too many of those key ingredients. Try and maybe at the younger age, certainly keep it at two or three. You might add it to five at an older age. Um, but really, if a player goes out with what I would say a checklist of key ingredients,
Mm-hmm.
it's in their kit bag, it's on their phone perhaps, and by all intents and purposes, they're thinking, right, success for me is to display a positive body language, to go through my batting routines, to play with positive intent. Then they are giving themselves the best opportunity to score runs and help their team. But also when it comes down to this negative bias up here, at the end of the match, the natural thing to do is I'm good today or I'm crap today. That's generally what people do. And once the emotions have died down, again, a coach can help a player or a parent can help a player look through these key ingredients and perhaps rate themselves out of 10 for each of these areas. And by the time you've looked at it, you think, well, actually, okay, I wasn't actually terrible in this area. I was okay. Obviously, a little bit different if you're a batter and you're out for a golden duck. It's a bit difficult, but to get a bit of a balance. But it can help. It can help shift your mindset, so you're not just thinking negative, negative, negative. And I suppose you could have key ingredients for fielding as well. Should you
Mhm.
be that batter who is out for the golden duck, at least you can then look at the wider contribution towards the team.
Yeah, and what we also need to just state is that within in cricket, but applicable to other sports as well. I know, um, in those key ingredients have got to be measured against what you can control and what you can't control. So as a batter, you can't control how the bowler's going to let go of the ball. You can't control how the ball's going to deviate off the wicket. You can't control if the umpire is going to put the finger up or not. So it just might have been, it might have been the occasion where, even though you went through all of your processes and focused on your key ingredients, your number was up and you were just going to be out. So focusing on the controllables rather than taking your mind away from those things, I think is also really important, and keeping it simple, because as you rightly suggested before, almost scoring yourself out of 10 against those key ingredients keeps things simple. And you could, I'm sure it'd be interesting to hear what you say. I'm sure other people would have a view as well. But at the end of whether it be at the end of the game or another day, reflecting back on the match, you could ask individuals and the team, score yourselves out of 10 against these little things, and how come if the score is 6, right, regardless of the result, if the score is 6, well, how do you think, as players, how do you think you can get from a 6 to a 7, or a 6 to a 6.5? Not 6 to 10, but just gradual improvements and progression. Those marginal gains, is whatever they're called.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, in a way you're then helping the players problem solve, aren't you? And
Yeah,
as you say, that putting an action plan in place.
yeah, and
What
taking a bit of ownership.
Yeah, I think on that topic, what I tend to do is when I go through these key ingredients, we might come up with five, six, seven, and then I'll what I would do is I would ask them to rate their previous performances, be it the last month or the last
Mm-hmm.
3 months prior season. It's just so I'm gaining a picture and they're gaining a picture of what their stronger areas are.
Yep.
Because as you say, like focusing on things that we can control is paramount in these key ingredients. But it might well be, let's say we'll go with the body language one. It might be that, somebody says, yeah, body language is a key ingredient, but actually they rate themselves as a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
And so I suppose what I'm trying to get at here is that some of these key ingredients, some people find quite natural and they're very easy to pick up and they can do. Some of those might be lower rated and they find really, really difficult. So I suppose helping them have an appreciation of that, whilst also you as a coach gaining an appreciation, then it, I suppose it gives you as a coach some ideas on how you can then perhaps help them moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other point with that is that I think you have to be very careful with this one when it comes down to the perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
So the perfectionist will ultimately just go drill straight into the lower ranking numbers,
Yep.
and they'll focus all their attention there. So as a coach, trying to help them focus more so on the higher ranking ones, which they
Yep.
do perform better, is key.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the guy who was my head of PE at school, and he just had this knack, regardless of result, regardless of outcomes, regardless of the team being made up of all sorts of different individual personality types. He would always select a moment where a player was at his or her best, and remind them of that moment and that contribution. So that was his kind of mantra and philosophy. And I definitely look to him as a real role model in the way in which I aim to coach even today. And that strength-based approach is very much underpins the way I go about coaching kids. Should we move on to our second question?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So the question here is, again, I suppose from a coaching perspective, what do you understand about the importance of environment for young players? So what were your thoughts there, David, and what were the things that you kind of had going on in your head when coming up with that
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. So I suppose if we think about players and their personalities for starters,
Mm-hmm.
so naturally some are maybe quieter, more reserved, some are very outgoing, sociable, some are in the middle. And I'm thinking about personalities in general here to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Then you throw in cricket and training, perhaps in the nets maybe, or throw in a match, and how does that personality change when they're striving for competence, if you like, and the ego gets in the way and they're trying to impress their coach, their teammates, and things like that. Do they go quiet, and take themselves away from others? Do they become louder again? How some people feel more comfortable. It might be, I know I have this this conversation more so with parents is sometimes like that journey maybe to the match, the use of the mobile phone is actually a good thing for some kids because it distracts them and it it takes their mind off the perhaps off the outcome, off the match. So again, the use of mobile phones comes into this, and when and where, which I know gets obviously more complicated for the coach. Yeah, well, yeah, there's some ideas for starters on just trying to understand the player a little bit better and their preferences there.
Yeah, and I think all of those factors will definitely differ depending upon the individual player in your team that you coach, and again depending upon their age and stage of development through the age groups, that will also have an impact. The ability to be able to switch off or switch on, and really kind of focus when it comes to whether it be a practice session or a match scenario, are all fascinating aspects of this. And some kids, you're right to point out, some kids love the idea of performing. See that kind of match situations about going on stage, and they don't have any kind of anxiety. It's just about getting out there and showing their skills. Whereas a lot more, I think the number would be a lot bigger, do worry. And when it comes to match and the environment, whether it be home or away, whether it be familiar territory or unfamiliar territory, that brings with it a load more sort of noise, if you want to call it just a general term, but stuff that can distract from those things we just talked about in the first discussion point around, strengths and key ingredients and process and so on.
Yeah, and I think to add to that as well would be when they get to around about the 10, 11 mark,
Mm-hmm.
age-wise, a child will generally go from being quite task focused to being a lot more aware of other people and trying to perhaps please the coach more, please their teammates. They'll worry more about the opposition and things like that. A lot of mind reading goes on. So again, if we're talking about coaches asking good questions and taking the time to find out more about their players, that's certainly one thing that they can do to try and find out that little bit more about maybe what is providing some anxiety there and maybe some doubt and why they're getting distracted by certain things.
Yeah, and
And
an
yeah,
environment environment for me, when I read the question, when you first sent it across, environment means different things to different people, doesn't it? And you can have your own personal environment. So that journey to the game or to the practice session is part of the environment for that player. And I don't want us to get sidetracked into parental involvement and how that can hinder as well as help. But that is certainly a big topic. The environment when you're at the game or at your practice session, however familiar you are or unfamiliar you are with that particular place. And you talk about mobile phones being possibly advocating that way of escape and to switch off. And I remember a young lad, I'm trying to remember how old he would have been, maybe 14, I think. And he was really very, 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 very talented all-round cricketer, very committed to doing as well as he could for the team. But whenever he was waiting to go into bat, he really lost his process. He lost his self-belief. And I said, what kind of music do you like? So talking about environment. So what kind of music do you like? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, just tell me what kind of music you like. So he told me, I can't remember what it was. And I didn't even understand what it was when he told me. And I said, well, why don't you just go and listen to some of that for the next couple of minutes and just listen to that. Don't watch what's happening out on the field. Don't think about anything else that's going through your mind about the game or what you're wanting to do. Just switch off, listen to music that you enjoy. And that's what he still does now as part of his process, is listening to music that he likes. And the music might have changed, but he's kind of kept that as part of his list of key ingredients, if you refer back to what you described it as before.
I'm chuckling because I think that I think music actually is a really, really huge help for people, because if you think about it, you've got left brain and right brain, and the left brain's the thinking part, or the often the overthinking part, where we're in the past, we're in the future, we're skipping back and forth, never in the present. But actually, right brain is all about rhythm, about timing. Music plays into that fantastically and helps us remain more present. I play a bit of golf to a half decent level, and it was about a fortnight ago. I was having a good round. I was about 5 or 6 holes from the finish, thinking, yeah, it's a good card coming in here. And literally all I did for the last 5, 6 holes for an hour was sing to myself when I had the opportunity. So we'd on Alexa we'd had it'll come to us at the end. Anyway, I'm singing those tunes, and yeah, I was humming away, and yeah, it just really helps you get in flow, and going back to the first question, and those sort of positive emotions and experiences, and yeah, you feel pretty good, and you can interrupt the negativity and the pressure around it.
Well, music, just one more thing on the music side. I remember Peter Moore's, and the guys who are listening now and who will listen when we send out the recording will know Peter Moore's from his time at as England head coach, East and Lancashire. He's still been a head coach in Nottinghamshire for a number of years. Very, very well regarded in the field of elite high performance coaching, and not just within cricket but other sporting environments as well. And I remember him giving a keynote address at a cricket coaching conference where he talked about it being a kind of like an added motivator. So if you were given the opportunity in a practice session to pick the music, that was like considered to be a real good thing. So there was always noise going on, but it was music, rather than so traditionally, within the elite game, let alone club level, adults or kids. Traditionally, there's no music, but in more recent years, I'm not saying that this has been sort of since Peter Moore's talk, but in more recent years now, you'll kids will bring their own music, and they'll have someone will be the person to bring the speakers, someone will be the Spotify person, and they'll put it on, before the game starts or in the practice session. And again, that just helps them relax in that environment. And even at university level, which I'm coaching at now, that's what they do. Part of their warm up is having music on alongside them, practicing or stretching or whatever. So I think that the music side is definitely a positive. We'll move on to our third question, David, which is, what are your thoughts on the mantra, "You must always work hard"?
Ooh, these days, effort is talked about an awful lot, isn't it? And it has been for a number of years now. I think probably since Carol Dweck and her growth mindset studies and books came out, well, probably talking about a decade ago. So hey, great. Obviously, yeah, we want kids to work hard, or don't we? We want, well, everybody to work hard. Um, my my only worry again there is when we're focusing so much on effort, when we're focusing on those words again, you must work hard, you must work hard, you must work harder. Um, some some kids especially can hang on to your like every word, and if we don't know the person or that well, we don't know exactly how they're spending their time, what their thought process around working hard is. Um, we can quite easily kick the enjoyment out of them. We
Yeah,
can risk injury. They can burn out. The amount of I was going to say kids, but adults who I've worked with over the years where they've had that mentality, which is, I mean, let's face it, is a good skill to have the discipline, the drive, the commitment, but that they end up losing what I would say like the inner child experience, and the creativity, those fun and positive feelings, because it's like they're walking in treacle or quicksand all of the time. And they often end up focusing on the negative massively. So yeah, again, as I say, just really getting to know the player and how they perceive that meaning is so important.
yeah, and I think it's a very interesting topic, this one, because even within the realms of teaching as opposed to coaching, there's the strong advocacy for praising effort as opposed to doing something well or not well, but trying to do something well is where teachers will try to step in and say, well done for trying. And I personally, in a coaching capacity with kids, I'm always trying to encourage the kids to try their best. Now, one person's best is going to be very different to another person's, but as long as they're trying their best and being seen to do that themselves, then and that's where this I do a lot of this kind of simple question: how well do you think you how well do you think you did in that particular situation? What could you do differently next time? How could you do that differently is something that some kids find quite difficult to be able to process. But trying, the effort to actually get to a ball to stop it, or trying to ensure that the ball hits the middle of the bat as opposed to the edge of the bat, trying to land the ball in a particular area. I was coaching the nets with two kids yesterday, and we just had a very simple drill where it was two brothers, one against the other, older against younger, trying to land the ball in a cone area, a little square. But they were both trying their absolute best, but the outcomes weren't the same. But they were almost egging each other on to try to outdo the other. So I think effort is good, but the thing that was very relevant about that little session yesterday was the inner child point. So the fun and enjoyment of trying to outdo big brother or trying to keep ahead of little brother was as important as the outcome of hitting landing in the box itself. And that for me is representative of how we as coaches need to make sure we balance our mantra and ensure that fun and friendship is central to all participation in the game.
Yeah, I've got a few things to say on that one. The Sorry, when you're talking about like sibling rivalry there, but I suppose it could be just rivalry within the team.
Mm-hmm.
It obviously there's I think there's pros and cons with this one. You know, if you read, let's say, Matthew Syed's book Bounce, where he talks about, again, going back to environment and table tennis, how
Yeah.
it was about 4 to 5 players, wasn't there, from one street who were the best table tennis players in the UK.
UK. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, obviously by having that competitive environment amongst each other that's going to drive people on, yeah, great. But I think the downside sometimes can be, again, all dependent on the personality of the kid or the person, where they can be quite, some can be very critical and quite down on themselves, and it can help one but not the other.
Mm-hmm.
So can we also encourage what I would say like a team ethic? So it's not always, say there's 2 players, they're trying to, I suppose, outdo each other, as you say there, with regards to trying to get the ball into the area. Fine, like let's do some like 1v1 stuff there, maybe measure it. But can we do some team stuff as well? So can they both be challenged to,
Yeah.
right, together? Can you do? Can we get the time? Can we get the timer out? You've got, I don't know, you've got 2 minutes to get as many in that area together, as opposed to being one v
Yeah.
one, and then that
Yeah. Yeah.
drives teamwork and
Yeah.
collective responsibility.
Well, I think that whole area of, like you mentioned, Carol Dweck's work, Matthew Saeed. I was introduced to again. It was funny enough at the same ECBCA conference where Matthew Saeed spoke and Peter Moores spoke, and kind of explored that whole area of social science and growth mindset and all that kind of stuff. Was introduced to me for the first time. I think it was probably over a decade ago now. But what about this question that you posed, which is, are all players coachable?
Yeah, I bet a lot of people would say no, they're not all players are coachable. Um, but again, you know, I think there's an argument here to say, let's try and get to know the players, and maybe the reason why we label some players as uncoachable is because they get frustrated easily, they get angry, they perhaps lack patience, and you know, is that down to their upbringing? Is it down to something that's happened at home? Is it a fear mechanism? Are they frightened to show vulnerability? Um, so yeah, I suppose again, I suppose there's a reality here in trying to get to know your players better, because we've hopped on about that quite a lot. There's a reality
Mm.
where if you're a volunteer, you're potentially going to be time poor.
Yeah.
Um, Also, it's a team sport, so how do you do that? Trying to be clever about it is and maybe like log down from time to time, like when you are having conversations or like more in-depth conversations with people. So you're sharing the load probably is quite helpful. But ultimately, as I say, this uncoachable player, we've talked an awful lot about negative emotions there. I have. So how can we then just open up those questions to some of those to that player, really about those key ingredients that we talked about, and maybe creativity and risk taking and what they do when they're at their best, the like scanning the field, to how they can intimidate their opponents, all attributes that you want to try and bring out of any player, and by asking good questions.
Yeah, and I think that I think words that come to my mind, listening to you there, it's not necessarily about skill. It could be, where, when or how do you feel at your best in terms of comfortable, feeling most comfortable, or safe or happy, and yeah, I can think, I'm sure the guys on the call and others listening later will think of individuals they've coached where they probably wouldn't class them as the most coachable, but you remember them because you tried to find a way to help them enjoy their experience, even though they might not necessarily, quote unquote, be the most coachable on face value. And as parents, what's a fascinating area which maybe we should revisit on another occasion is being a parent and being a coach, not necessarily of your own kids, but being a parent and a coach of other people's kids. You're mindful of judging, but you all parents understand the importance of attention that kids demand and kids crave, and sometimes in a club cricket or sports club environment for kids, the ones who appear to be less coachable, they're just trying to get some kind of attention, even if it's bad attention. And it shouldn't be, we shouldn't be judging that that's coachable or uncoachable. It's just they need attention, and we've got to be able to flex our style to accommodate them, as long as it's not detracting from the rest of the group. And that's not easy.
Yeah, no, most definitely, especially in a team sport like cricket. And I suppose on that theme, when I think about resilience and how you build resilience in a person, getting that balance between supporting them and then challenging them is so important. And I suppose to be able to do that, to really, as a coach, you need to be able to share your journey to a degree and share like some of your vulnerabilities, your mistakes that you've made, and really, I suppose, especially kids these days, they grow up in a YouTube culture where everything's perfect. You get things just like that. You don't necessarily have to work hard for it, or in their minds. So really highlighting the highs and the lows along the way from A to B is again very important.
Yeah, I'm smiling because you were describing there in many ways my younger son, and he's somebody I think will probably be directing your way at some point in the near future for some sessions. I think we'll probably wrap it up there, actually, for those for where we've got to, but give Liam and Paul the opportunity to ask any questions if they want to come in and ask you any questions, David. So
So I'm interested in dealing with the immediate aftermath of a crushing defeat. Nice, easy question. Thanks for that one. Okay, right. I'll use a pencil as an analogy. Right, so let's imagine then the player for one player for starters here. If the bottom of this pencil is relaxation, up here as the adrenaline levels are pumping, arousal levels are up here. If it's a crushing defeat, I'm guessing the arousal levels will be right up there. And naturally, maybe the evening before there might be a slight spike to the morning of the game. There might be in the middle somewhere. And then as the game goes on, it's probably going to increase and increase to the point where they're up here. So that's first thing to consider with the player's emotional experience. Now, what I'm thinking about here is a parent's emotional experience. If they're watching, their kid in this scenario is probably going to go up through the roof as well. A coach's emotional experience, depending on the coach, I would imagine you probably wouldn't enjoy watching your team get a crushing defeat. So you might be quite high up on this scale, if you like. So let's think about this a bit more. So if most of the players are up there, the parents are up here, the coaches up here, it's not necessarily the
the best place to be having a real debrief, I would say, immediately after the match. It'd be a little bit like two people in a household, husband and wife or partners, having an argument, where they're both like highly aroused, and there's they're not going to be necessarily making a great deal of sense. Or certainly from a learning experience, the players aren't exactly going to learn a lot. So yeah, that's well, there's one consideration. What I often say to parents who can be, I don't know if guilty is the word here, but who like to have a conversation with their children after a match, and perhaps a defeat in this case, is to just let this settle down a little bit and have a conversation a couple hours afterwards, or maybe the following day rather than immediately afterwards when the kid just doesn't want to hear it and they want to put their headphones on and look out the window, or play on their mobile phone.
They want to eat as well,
Um,
don't they? They want to eat,
yeah,
and they don't really
yeah,
want to. They don't really want to get into the game. You know what happened? How did they contribute? So it's very. I
mm,
mean, Paul, I'll step in here very quickly because I've made the mistake in the past of doing that kind of thing after a crushing defeat. And David's analogy of that kind of high emotional state. All the kids know they've just got absolutely battered, so they don't need the coach then to be ramming it down their throats, reminding them of the things that they could have done differently and why did they do that in that situation and so on. I think letting what I've learned over time is letting that level of emotion come back down towards the ground is a much better time to then do a review. And this is interesting, a topic at elite level as well, because discussing this point with Gary Kirsten, he's massively into doing post game meetings, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the opposition, but doing it sort of within an hour of the game finishing. But he's now kind of coming to the realization that that not isn't necessarily the best time, because of the emotions still being high. Um,
There's a,
so
there's a,
so thank you for that question. Did you want to add anything, David, before going over to Liam's?
yeah, there's a guy, you might want to check out as a coach, a guy called Mark Bennett, who he's worked a lot in high level rugby league, rugby union, and ex-military. His company's called PDS, so Performance Development Systems, I believe. I've interviewed him a few times on my podcast, and he talks about having like a hot review process. So perhaps, a lot of teams will have WhatsApp groups. So maybe the hot review is everybody within an hour of the game finishing, they'll put their thoughts in the WhatsApp group. And then you have a cold review the following day, or 48 hours after. And it's amazing the difference with the hot review and the cold review. And obviously then you can be a bit more calculated about the action planning stage. But yeah,
Yeah,
Mark's worth checking out anyway.
yeah, it's a great one. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Paul. And Liam's question has come in as well. So Liam's saying that with cricket being quite an individualistic team sport, how can you best encourage players to take enjoyment out of a positive team performance when the individual performance may not have been as positive? For example, getting a duck, but your team chases down 300 to win, which is a really good point.
I suppose if we think about those key ingredients that we talked about earlier, could there be some team key ingredients there, as in how can we be the best version of ourselves to be able to support the team? Um, as you say, they may have had a duck, but then obviously they need to contribute in the field still if they're not an all-rounder. Then they need to be able to contribute when they're sitting warming the bench up, and watching their mates go out to bat. Very, 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 very difficult, but obviously I think trying to question and bring to players awareness about how they can influence another player, and then another player influences another, and so on and so forth, and about camaraderie and again, how we can just sort of try and bring out some of these positive emotions, I think is important, but very difficult, obviously, of where we're talking an awful lot about outcomes and results and runs.
Yeah, I would add, just my own experience, Liam, again, is to say that there's no easy fix there. And being somebody who is an opening bat, when I played, it used to take me 20 to 30 minutes to kind of switch off from the disappointment of getting out. Now that's as an adult, but for kids, whether it be batting and getting a duck, or dropping a couple of catches, or missing a stumping, or bowling a number of wides, so not performing at a level that you were hoping to or aspiring to, and yet the team won. So being part of that team that was successful in terms of outcome. I think there's a lot more in cricket. We spend far more time, don't we, in the field than we do in anything else. So the contribution, even if it's just verbally, even if it's non-verbally but positive, can still you can still recognise that and feel as though, or enable the player to feel as though they've made some kind of contribution, even if it's not tangibly with regards to the making runs. But yeah, great questions. Thank you, David. Really appreciate you taking the time. We've gone into a lot of different areas there, from the very first one of, what do coaches notice about the players when they're playing at their best, through to that last question about coachable and uncoachable. We've talked about the environment. We talked about positive thinking, negative thinking. We talked about emotions. We've talked about an awful lot. So hopefully that's going to present more questions for the likes of Liam, Paul, and anybody else who will listen to the recording. But let me first of all just say a massive thanks for spending the time with us this evening. Cheers, David. And if anybody wants to listen to your podcast or find out anything more about the work you do around the mentality and mindset, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Demystifying Mental Toughness, which is now on to 30 odd episodes. It's been going for about 4 years. There's a host of podcasts there. And then the website I've got is the 3ws.sport-excellence.co.uk, and there's a multitude, hundreds of blogs there as well to help people. So big thank you for the opportunity again, Tom. And as always, it's nice to chew the fat, and we're always learning, aren't we?
Yeah, totally. We are always learning, and I've got loads of things down again from this evening's chat. Thank you to you. So,
if you'd like to check out Tom's work, details are in the show notes. He can be found at the 3ws.cricketcoach365.co.uk. And Tom is based near Warrington, not too far away from Liverpool or Manchester. And someone else who's based in northwest England, well, it's James Anderson. Last week, James played his final test match for England after racking up 188 caps and 704 wickets, which you've got to agree is mighty impressive. Now, what impresses me the most, though, with Jimmy Anderson is his longevity. To play at the highest level till you're 41 is damn right amazing. And what can we learn from James Anderson in mental toughness terms? Well, there's a lot. I could probably waffle on for about 20-30 minutes if I wanted to, but I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to touch on commitment to the cause. To last as long as he did, to perform as well as he did as well, he clearly was a goal setter. And a goal setter who wasn't derailed, wasn't distracted from his goals, at least very often. And with this comes a can-do attitude and a degree of self-care, to be able to say no to requests, to look after himself and put his needs first and foremost, to put his cricket first and foremost. This must have been a feature of his personality. Now, enough of Jimmy. I'm going to finish with a quick tip for you. Whether you or your players are in good form right now, or you're struggling for runs, or struggling to take wickets, it's very easy to play your cricket on autopilot. So how about this week, you ask yourself this question as a player: to aid your focus. Or if you're a coach, you ask your players, if this was my last game of cricket ever, how would I approach it? That's right, I'll repeat it. If this was my last ever game of cricket, how would I approach it? Get a pen and paper out, make some notes, then understand you are the one who is in control of your destiny. Not your teammates, not your parents, your family, your coaches. It's up to you. And you can choose to play this great game however you wish. That's all for now. Enjoy your day.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.